Hi, my name is Osahon. I'll be your trainer for today. I'll be taking you through a lab on NAT Gateway. Specifically, the NAT Gateway is a resource that helps the private subnet or the server in the private subnet to communicate with the web. However, it's a one-way communication. That simply means it connects and transfer resource from the private secured subnet and server to the web user. So this is the architectural structure. We have the AWS cloud, we have the region, and we have our zone. So we are going to create both a private and a public subnet on this particular lab. Pretty much simple, very simple. Once you understand the architectural structure, you'll be able to run this on your own. So in this session, we are going to look at NAT Gateway. We are going to look at the main route table. We are going to look at internet gateway. We are going to look at private route table. It all depends. We may use the main and customize. It all depends on having a good knowledge how this works. So go with me to the AWS console. So at this point, the first thing I have to do is to create my server through the EC2 instance. I'm going to run this for both private and public. So I'm going to put Windows. I can use this as private. You can create your own name. We are using a Windows server. I'm going to select 2022 base. I'll quickly run through. So once 2022 base is selected, all this description comes along with the operating system on the AMI. So now I'll have to go down a little bit. Let's see. The instance type, which is the operating system, okay, one CPU, one memory, and the generation. So it is free tier by default, T2 micro. So I go down to select the key. So this is the key I've created in the past. So I can use any of them, or I create a new one. At this point, I'm going to my settings, select my settings. I can use my default, I can use my customize. Okay, so I may want to use my customize. Now underneath the customize, I have my public and private, so that is sufficient for this training. So I'm going to take my first to be my public. So for public, you can see the auto assign public IPs enabled. I'll go down. I have an existing group, okay, which is the firewalls. On this existing group, what do we have here? We have our RDP protocol, HTTP protocol, and HTTPS protocol. So at this point, every single action has been taken. I click on launch. So remember, we are creating two servers. So this is the first server showing pending. I want to maintain a single, so I'll go back, create another instance. So I'll give this as Windows. The first one we did was Windows. So this is public, not private, so I have to edit this. The first one was public. So the second now will be private. The same steps, Windows as my AMI. Operating system, I'm choosing 2022. Select my key. Settings, I'll use my custom. Mine is VPC. I have to disable because it's private. So if this is private, I have to select private. So take a careful look. Private, the previous was public. So at this point I have to go down, select my existing group and click on the security group. I click on launch. So both have been launched. So I'll come down and click on view all. I'll refresh and have both private and public. How do we differentiate them? Apart from the names, when you click on private, you move down, you can clearly see that we only have the private IP number. There's no public IP. So now for the public, the same thing goes. You can see public and private. So this one can be easily accessed and a two-way stream online. But this private cannot be accessed because the private IP is disabled. So how then do we get resource from the private to the end user? So that is where the NAT gateway comes in. So it's an additional resource that help transfer secured or confidential resource to a specific user. So now we have both of them. Let's keep them running. So we have the status check as 2 of 2, the other. So just keep refreshing. At this point, just a quick test. I'll click on trying to connect just to see what we are trying to achieve. I click on connect. I come to the RDP client. I download the remote desktop file. I have to scroll down a little to get my password encrypted. So I go to my password and I decrypt to get my password. So going back to the download, just click on it. I'm trying to connect my virtual machine with the remote desktop. So that is what I'm trying to achieve here. Creating a VM right now. That will be our test platform for our resource. So because this is open to the public, it is very easy to access resource from the customer's endpoint. But on the private, I will not be able to create a virtual machine which the user can have access to. But in this case, the virtual machine has been created. So I'll be going back now to the public. Let's see if I can access the public from the private. All I need to do is to take my public IP take my private IP here. On the private, I can click on connect, click on RDP, I'll go back to the virtual machine which I've created. I'll type in RDP to call out the interface for my connection and my test. So at this point, I'll come down, either I go through here or I come through here. The computer name will be the private IP connect. So at this point now I have to put my user details. So these are already here. Come down, user, pick the user, and I have to minimize again. Go pick decrypt my password, and I'll try to log in using the public IP on the virtual machine. See, log on attempt failed. Reasons being, it's a private network, there's no NAT gateway set up, so the user cannot access resource. So it's not possible without a NAT gateway. So at this point now, I will have to go create NAT gateway, come back to the same and do my tests. So what I'll have to do is to click on minimize. Let's go to our VPC. The NAT gateway is under the VPC resource. Under VPC, straight down to NAT gateway, which is pretty much simple. Click on create NAT gateway. So I'll give it a name. I can give it NAT gateway. You can give it a name of your choice. Subnet. So the subnet I'm using this on will be on the public. So I'm connecting the NAT gateway on the public through which I will route my resource from the private. So at this point, I have to allocate an elastic IP to make my public IP static. So I've allocated. The next thing, just click on create. So at this point, we have successfully created our NAT gateway. So I'll come to click on NAT gateway. It's still showing as pending. So click and refresh. Let's see. The status we have to change shortly. So just click on refresh and hold on. The next thing we have to do to connect the NAT gateway to a routing table. Without the routing table, there will not be redirection. So NAT gateway has been created. We are going to the routing table for configuration. So at this point of showing as pending, if we go to the routing table without available, we'll look for this is the VPC here, and let's see, under the VPC you have selected this is the VPC we are using. You have to go to routes. We click on edit. At this point in time, when we click on NAT gateway, we select our destination, click on NAT gateway, click on this. Okay, we have the NAT gateway here. When I click on save, there will be an error message. Reasons being, we have two destinations on one route, so it's overriding. So I have to take everything or cancel. Now what do I do at this point in time? So I'll either create a new table, give it a name, Windows routing table, connect it to the VPC and simply click on create routing table. So at this point now, I have the new routing table I just created, which is this. So on this, I can connect my NAT gateway. So NAT gateway, select my resource and click on save. So that is perfectly done. So everything has been done. I've successfully connected my NAT gateway, routed through the public, okay, through a router to the end user. So we are going to do our tests. Let's go back to our AWS console. Let's refresh. Now we have the public VPN already running, which is this. We have the private ID, which is this. So let's go back and see the tests and to test our connection, which we have done. So I'll go straight down. The IP address is this, and if we go back to our resource 1.92, that is the end 1.92. So I'm going to decrypt my password. Straight down, decrypt. I have my password, I have my admin. So I click on a user name. I'm going back. I put my username. Now all I need is my password. I'll minimize. I pick my password. I come back to this and put my password. Click on. So I'm able to access as the end user the resource in the private because I've attached a NAT gateway to this server. So I hope the process is very clear. It's simple. Create a public and a private server. Create NAT gateway from the VPC. We are routing it through the public server to a router, and from the router the end user can access the platform. Just take a careful look. You'll be able to see the description, location and information of this server created. Thank you so much. You can see there's no private IP, just only public, and the resource within can be transferred to the specific user. Thank you.